Welcome back to OCG Garage, guys. We have a fun one today. I'm going to be installing, if you guys remember in the previous videos, I had purchased a gauge pod holder, custom made by this guy named Jeff on Facebook. I'll show you guys right now. My gauge just came in of what I want to install. I'm going to be putting a boost gauge on the steering column. I just think that it's a good place to have a boost gauge. It doesn't really distract you from the gauges like the speedometer. I plan on fixing the tachometer today. Hopefully. It is really hot out today. We've had like record-breaking heat. I want to say yesterday was like 102 without the heat index. So it was like 120 at one point. It's like disgustingly hot out, guys. I'm trying to stay cool. So my original plan was to do, I still have to do ball joints on the car. I still need to do sway bar links on the car. I don't want to take the wheels off again. We've been doing those projects for the past 2 weeks, I want to say. So let me do something on the inside of the car. This is the package that came in Amazon, not my water. So I went with an AEM Boost Gauge. I ordered that on Amazon. If you guys have not noticed, I order everything on Amazon. It just arrives faster. I sometimes use the Amazon rewards card and I get some points on it. And then this is some trans fluid. So I went with the heavy shockproof. I did a little bit of research, and the reason why I went with the heavy shockproof is because the transmission sometimes, I'm not gonna say it grinds going into gears, but sometimes it's a little notchy. I hope that it clears it up, but I'm not 100% sure. From what I've heard, people that have just a small grind, using the heavy shockproof transmission fluid does help with that. Again, I'm not 100% sure. I'm just going based off of what I've read. I'm gonna replace it and see how it comes out. I wanna zoom in a little bit. I ordered underneath the shifter, there's a bushing that actually goes into the transmission, and it's plastic. They sell a metal replacement, which I ordered through G-Tech. It hasn't arrived, but they also say that that helps with a little bit of the sloppiness of the shifter. So I'm excited to do all of those things to see how it changes the feel. Again, guys, the super driver car, it doesn't drive very good, but all these little things are making it better. And I think it's pretty exciting seeing things change. Now, moving on from that, what I plan on doing is I have to take this cover off in order to install my gauge pod. So while I'm here, I'm gonna see, hopefully I could find out what's going on with my turn signal indicator. If you guys remember, sometimes it'll click by itself. When you have a turn signal light that's out, it'll blink really, really fast. This one does the same thing, but it doesn't actually indicate whether you're making a left or a right. So I just think that something is shorting out behind the stalk. I hope it's something simple where it's just cleaning off a couple of like the electrical connections at the very end, but I won't know until I get in there. All right, so I got the turn signal indicator opened up. As you guys can tell, it's not in good shape. So there's contact points missing. I don't know if that's the proper terminology, but I'm going to say there's a contact point right there that's missing. This piece actually ended up falling out as soon as I opened it up. So there's like goopy, nasty stuff in here. So I just think that this has been shorting out for probably quite some time, and it's just progressively getting worse. If you guys can see, it's actually burnt on that side of the board. So I don't know which diode, I think that's what they're called. I don't know which one exactly tells the board what to do. But I'm thinking that all of this corrosion and all of this liquid that's in here is probably just shorting all of this out. And eventually it will probably catch on fire. I went ahead and ordered, I called the local Nissan store and they actually have them local, as crazy as that is. So I put it on order. I'll pick one up tomorrow, but look at that. Look how nasty that is. And the backside, look at the plastic. So you could tell this has been getting hot for quite some time. So it's a good thing that I took it apart. So we'll just roll without turn signals, no big deal. Moving on from the fried turn signal, I am going to be installing the AEM Series X Boost Gauge. The reason why I went with this is because I'm going to be using the AEM Series X wideband as well. This is what it looks like, guys. They went with like a shallow face, so you could install it pretty much anywhere. The reason why I went with this boost gauge is because according to them, they have the fastest reading electronic boost gauge on the market. Not sure if that's true, but I like the way it looks, so they sold me. It comes with a nice little sensor, vacuum hose, the wiring, everything is nicely loomed up. Everything is pretty simple for the most part for the install. There's a power, there's a ground, and then there's different outputs depending on what you're using to tune your car. For now, obviously my car is pretty much stock, so all I need is a switched on power and a ground. I was just doing some planning and looking around to see where I want to route this wiring. So this wire has to go from the gauge to a sensor that will sit closer in the engine bay, and that will be our boost reference source for the gauge. I was trying to see, so what you guys have to do is we have to find a spot underneath the firewall, and I'm not going to get down there, but take my word for it, there is nothing open under there, which is a really good thing because it doesn't allow heat or cold air to come in during the winter times. I want to keep it like that. So American vehicles, or maybe it's just the cars that I've had in the past, there's tons of grommets, there's tons of openings where they run wire looms through the firewall into the engine bay. I see one grommet on this far side. I'm going to try to get this on camera. Give me 1 second. I have to move a box. If you guys can see, there we go. All right, so this grommet goes into the inside of the vehicle. I started peeling away the side, as you guys can tell, so I could see where it actually went. I shined light in there and I was able to see it come out through this side, and we're underneath the wheel well right now. So this entire wire loom runs through this grommet. I want to do it right. I don't want to tear up this rubber grommet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed the wire loom from the engine bay inside of the cabin, because I'm going to try my best to run it through the middle of this grommet so I don't compromise it. Now guys, I'm not going to sit here and BS you. I'm a big girl.
Chili baby bat rat.
There's a lot of work. So I know it's dark, but there's the hole which I routed the wires through into the engine bay. That's where I started. So just to give you guys an idea, the grommet placement is right in there. I ended up sticking a flathead screwdriver in there so I could actually move the grommet where I needed to feed the wire through. Now, if you guys do end up installing this on an R33, there's a bunch of black tape which kind of seals the grommet with the wires that are underneath where the pedals are. I had to pause the video so you guys didn't hear me moaning and groaning in down here. So there's the wire that I just installed. There's the harness, and it goes into the grommet on that right side. So everything is clean. I did not rip the rubber grommet. And again, we do that so we don't compromise anything. We don't want any moisture getting in here. We don't want any additional air, additional heat. All right, guys, back from sushi. My initial plan was to run the boost sensor all the way across the firewall and source from the manual boost controller to the wastegate. But I actually saw that people were grabbing a boost reference source from the stock boost gauge, which is right off the manifold. So if you guys can see, I teed in and I ran it across. But I want to show you guys, I cleaned up some wiring on the firewall since I was already there. So it looks a little bit nicer. And then I want to show you guys on this far side where I ended up mounting the sensor. So I ran a silicone hose across through the backside of these OEM hoses just so it hides it a little bit better. This is not a final placement for that sensor. I just wanted to show you guys where I put it for now. So that gets routed into the car. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so you guys can see. So that's wiring that connects to that sensor. The sensor gets a boost reference off of that T. Now that might have looked really easy, but it wasn't. So initially the teeth, I ended up breaking it because of how brittle the hose was that was here, the original. I tried to jam it in and of course it broke that T. And of course the hose broke again. So I had to cut it off and then replace that line with a brand new one off of this little sensor. But again, pain in the ass. And then to top things off, the actual boost gauge, which I will show you. So this is the boost gauge that I'm installing. As you guys can tell, this is a shallow mount. So normally these boost gauges have a little bit of a body to them, which allows them to go into the gauge pod holder. So as you guys can tell, this is deep enough where it supports a deeper boost gauge. Well, because this one only has this small lip, it doesn't allow enough surface area to stay in this pod. So of course, there's a third-party company that sells a body that you screw onto this boost gauge to allow it to sit in here a little bit more, I guess you can say firm, tight, whatever you want to call it. All right, guys, I guess this turned into a series 1 of 2 installing this boost gauge. I was hoping to get it all installed, but I just want to do everything right. It doesn't make sense for me to try to install everything and kind of half-ass everything. I'm going to go ahead and order those gauge pod extenders so I can install everything properly. The next video, I'll show you guys what I'm using as a power source, what I'm using as a ground source. And I ended up finding out the aftermarket radio is installed very incorrectly, so I'll have to fix that at some point. So I'll include that in the video as well. Other than that, my turn signal comes in tomorrow, so hopefully I can get everything installed besides the actual gauge itself, and we can finish up this video. As always, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.